Welcome back to the Vergeev Group campaign. This is Barbecue, your host, and we're getting down to the finish line here, just this one and the next one. So I'm going to go ahead and run through my startup, and we'll listen to the briefing for today's mission. Okay, looks like we've got to check in with ATC to take off today. And we'll just wait for number 2 to spool up and finish up our startup, and we'll get going. So the first few times I flew this mission, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, because there's a kind of, at one point there seems to be a delay, and you can think basically that you're done and you're not. So we will pay attention to that and hopefully get through this one alive. I'm spacing out here. I've adjusted the audio. It was always kind of loud, so hopefully this works out alright. And I guess we better check in. Alright. Looks like we're good to go. So I've put the stick forward a bit, retrimmed, and a couple inches on the collective. And you've got to wiggle that front wheel around, but once it gets going, it's pretty easy to taxi. So we're supposed to clear a landing area. We've had a few pilots go down, and we kind of need to search the area, perhaps defend an LZ for the pilots to get to, and we need to, of course, fly ahead of the, I think it's a MI-8 that's going to be dropping off a ground team to hold that LZ. and we need to head right to it and clear it so that they can land and use the LZ and then defend it. I like this mission because I've read a lot of books about helicopter combat and just combat in general lately in Afghanistan, and this, in my opinion, clearing LZs or just going to LZs and dropping troops off was one of the most dramatic missions that happened. Scariest, whatever you want to call it, because a lot of times these LZs were not easy to land on, number one. Look both ways. Thanks, Mom. And, you know, sometimes there'd be an ambush, and then let's say that one helicopter goes down. You know, then everyone's all gung-ho to rescue them, and they send another helicopter, and the same thing. Some of these events turned into real nightmares, and this one's similar because we're essentially doing the same thing here, so it adds a bit of realism to it. Another good mission. I'm going to hold short here and request permission to take the runway. All right. Now remember, we're already pitched down a fair amount, so when we're going to do a rollout takeoff, and when we want to rotate, you know, you've got to be aware that you're going to be pulling back on the stick pretty heavily, because if you just kept it where it's at, you're going to scrape your nose. So I think it's around 30, 40, 50 kph that we want to add a little collective. Try to do it smoothly. Okay, I've done worse. So that's the rolling takeoff. Clean up the gear. And don't need to advertise our presence with lights. And we'll head for steer point 1. Now in this mission, I like to use the route mode, because it's pretty uneventful until we actually get to the LZ. So I'll speed up and get a nice attitude for the helicopter before I engage trim mode. Helps it out. And we'll just keep the altitude hold off for now. Master arm on. So I submitted a thread, or created a thread on the forums about using the autopilot channels, or whatever you want to call them, stabilization, SAS channels, which is, I think, stability augmentation. And sometimes, you know, I wish people would read the the first post. My suggestion was for pilots that were used to flying traditional, like what, second generation heli, if this is considered a third generation, which I'm not sure, but basically the previous generation, like Hueys and Mi-8s, for example, that they fly a lot differently. And now the Mi-8 has some early sort of prototype version of stability augmentation that does work pretty well, but especially the Huey, it's you have to anticipate a lot. Every move you make, you sort of have to anticipate the ending of the move, and give opposite input, and so you'll settle out where you want to be. I've only spent a couple hours in the Huey and the MI8, so not exactly an expert, but it's a lot harder, let's put it that way, than flying the Ka-50. And my suggestion was that if there were pilots out there that had not flown the Ka-50, that were comfortable and used to flying these older generation helicopters, that they might consider, while they were learning the systems of the Ka-50, flying without the autopilot channels engaged, or without the stability channel, whatever you want to call them, because they're already going to be comfortable with that. And then they could engage one channel at a time, and that way, it would tell them exactly what that channel's doing. I found it very confusing for a long time, really understanding what those channels do, and how to use them, how they're essential to the operating the Ka-50. And I would never suggest that someone fly without those channels during combat, but the whole point of the thread was just that for those specific people that were used to traditional helicopter flight, that they might find it might facilitate their understanding of those channels as it relates to the Ka-50 by enabling them one at a time, since they're already comfortable flying without that stability augmentation. Anyway, a bunch of people are posting like, that's stupid, you shouldn't fly like that, you're not supposed to fly it like that, it was designed to fly with the channels on. And yeah, you're right, I know all that. And again, I wish people would read the first post, because if I had to do it all over again and I was used to traditional helicopter flight, each time I enabled a channel, I would have understood how that channel works, and that would have been the end of it, instead of gobs and gobs of reading, searching through threads, FAQs, getting conflicting information, and then 3 years later finally basically sorting it out. I mean, it's not like I spent 8 hours a day on it, but it was just a tip, so take it or leave it, I guess. So we're headed towards Krasnaya Polyana, although we're not going to make it all the way there. The LZ is a bit short of the area. When you're using route mode, it's been a while since we've really talked about this, so I thought I'd mention this. Like right now we're in direct heading mode, and if we go to flight plan mode, then it's going to stay on the course line that's been put on the PVI and the Abra. It's going to stay on that course line. We already talked about that. Now, if you notice, like on your first waypoint, that there doesn't seem to be a difference between the two, and let's say that you're way over here, and you switch to have it so that it gets you back on this course line, and it's not working, it's because it won't work until your INS has sorted itself out, and you've got a speed reading up here. Then it will work. But if you're like, this isn't working, check to make sure that it's had enough time to get your speed up here, and if it hasn't, that's why it's not working. So one reason this one was a bit confusing for me, this mission, is, I was kind of creeping up onto the LZ, scoping it out, and, for a long time, and really what you need to do is just go right to it, fly over it, because that triggers something. And if you don't do that, that trigger's never going to happen, and you're going to wonder why nothing's happening, basically. So You'll see here in a minute. I'm going to break this video up a bit, so you might see a short hiccup here. Okay, I'm going to disengage route mode. I'm going to switch to barometric altitude hold, even though it's not engaged yet. And our steer point is the LZ, so it's coming up next. You're loaded up with some ground pounding bombs. Let's see if we can put those to use. So you don't want to hover over this point because they'll appear right underneath you and you'll take a bunch of small arms fire. And sometimes it's difficult to even see these guys because of the terrain. You know, it's kind of like a V, like right there, that V. See those two V's, the peaks? It's kind of like that, and they're on one side of it, and it can be difficult to locate these guys, but we'll see what we can do here. Again, you don't want to hover. You want to pretty much be going at a pretty good clip and just fly right over it. And now I'm going to give them a chance to spawn. Let's see if I can enable my... Yeah, there's my bombs. This should be interesting. I'm not very good at bombing in a helicopter. I'm not very good at bombing, period, but I'm worse than a helicopter. But we'll see if we can have some fun. I want to drop them right there. I mean, I'm using the force here, basically. Whoa. Shit. Not even close. Oh well, that's okay. That's what our cannon's for. So let's get some. Let's stand off a bit and check these guys out with our Schval. Should be about right. Hope we're not too close. We'll find out. Get a stable hover, which is always key. Now see how that arrow right there isn't in the center? I'm going to retrim with a little left rudder so that gets centered, and that'll give us better accuracy on our gun, or more range, rather left and right. And where are these suckers? There they are, see? Whoa. Tried to throw a little rudder. If I could pick them all off on one go. Looks like I got most of them. Again, because they're on that side of that hill, it's kind of difficult. If you can see what I mean. All right. Turn on my brightness a bit, contrast. Go to black. I thought there was some kind of feedback from Naval after we got these guys. I'm wondering if maybe I missed one. So I'm just gonna pound the area a bit. Just for good measure. Do we have any rockets? Let's see. Nope. So the MI8 should be coming soon. See if we can draw some fire. If there are any guys there, we'll take some fire. In the briefing, they mentioned us having to drop some smoke or some Willie Pete, and we can't, you know. Yep. See, there's still someone in there. But that happens automatically, so don't worry about trying to figure out how to do that. This guy's got some cojones. Should be out of range. See if we can get this sucker. It's like right in there, wasn't he? Let's see. See, I am not in a stable hover, and this is kind of being a pain. Let's see if we can recenter that arrow. It really wants to go left. I ought to just cancel this employment weapons and start over, but see if we can get away with just a quick fix. You know, we don't have, I think this is it for the ammo. The armor piercing rounds and these high explosive rounds, so I want to be careful not to go too crazy with the gun here in case we need it later. Alright, I am going to cancel this hover. Let's get a little altitude so maybe we get a better view. That ought to be about right. turn up the brightness a bit, might help. Oh shit, there he is right there. Alright. See, that brightness annoys me, even though it's a good setting for using the Schwal. When you turn it, disengage it, it blows out. So it looks like we got that done just in time. Well, he's still on his way, but basically when he lands and then drops his guys off, there's going to be a flare, and you're going to be ordered to check it out, and it's over here in this area. And basically, I'm not sure if it's two of our guys. There's a group of the enemy for sure, but then there's this other group of two guys, and I'm not sure if there are pilots or not, because it doesn't really say in the debriefing. But I found that if you take out the big group, you're fine. Just don't mess with those two loners, those stragglers, because they might be our pilots. Might as well hang out in a hover again. And there might even be some AAA over here. Let's take a look. Yeah, you'd think I'd remember after having flown this and tested it God knows how many times. Sometimes there'll be a fire over there that you can see, and oh, there's the AAA right there. No, that's just a spot. It seems like there's sometimes you'll fly a mission and fly it again, and things that were killed in the first time around are still dead and like on fire, and the status persists, and I'm not sure if that's a bug or what, but it's as soon as you want to write up a bug for it, you can't reproduce it, which is typical. But if you notice that, that's what's going on there. Alright, I'm going to stop and start another video file. You might see a little hiccup again. I swear there was AAA over here somewhere. It was way up here, maybe. Looks like Stebble's coming up shortly. Maybe they just haven't spawned yet. Who knows? We'll find out here in a minute. I hear Stubble. I guess I could explain the auto descent mode while we're waiting. So this only works when you've got a hover engaged, an auto hover, and basically, like, I've got it mapped on my collective. It's like the opposite of engaging route mode is that you pull back on it and should see a light change. Yeah, auto descent. And if you notice, we're descending at about 2 meters per second at a very controlled rate. So if you're in really nasty conditions and or for whatever reason you need to safely descend, this is a good way to do it, although it does take some time. And when you let go, it'll just stabilize at the current altitude, and you don't have to re-engage hover mode. It automatically re-engages there. I think I got dumped all my bombs. Yep. Probably give my laser a break, which I've already done. Okay. Actually, might as well search for that AAA. Again. Aha! Looky there. Now that thing almost looks destroyed. I'm sure we're out of range for the guns, but nope. Probably won't have a very good chance of hitting it. And I don't want to waste too many rounds here. Well, let's get a little closer. Disengage my hover. And we'll just set about 100 kph, 70, something like that. Retrim. Then we could just, be nice if we could get a lock. But if it's dead, better make sure. That wasn't even close. Yeah, I'm gonna call that guy dead. So turn that back off, cannon off. Laser off, back up a bit. There's some smoke that we apparently put down. Watch these guys disembark. that other guy must be carrying the body bags. I guess there's a bunch of scripts that people have written that you can use that basically implements some kind of onloading and offloading of troops, but I haven't really checked them out. Of course, this was done way back before probably you could even write scripts, and you know, it does the job, but I guess they've got some sophisticated scripts out there that do a really good job of this. Well, this video is going to get to be really long because these guys take a while, so I guess we'll let this one be a surprise, although I've sort of already told you what's going on, just in case you're having trouble with it. As I said, you're going to get, these guys are going to take off, and you're going to start heading back, and they're going to say, did you see that red flare? And of course you don't, it's very hard to see. I've only seen it once. You really have to be looking over in this direction at the perfect time. And in order to trigger that happening is when you're heading back facing the other direction. So well, let's see if we can get it to happen here. Was that saying I never hit my steer point? Let's see here. I think basically we have to start heading back to Sochi, and we'll get this call. We'll see here. Because at this point, oh, actually that's not true. We don't have 100. But I was testing something out. Actually, if you make sure that those guys do that, Stebble is able to drop the guys off and start heading back to base. I think you pass the mission at that point. But in order to get 100, you have to do this other stuff, this flare thing. Let's look for this flare. I think this is when it happens. Maybe not. Yeah, two. Okay, so number one, I didn't see a flare, even though we were kind of looking over there, but there is one, believe it or not. I've seen it once. And I love how they say at 2 o'clock, and you don't even know what direction they're heading. So that's not very helpful. but basically it's right in this area. So break out your gun. And start looking for this group. Actually, probably ought to come to a hover here. Oh yeah, see that? And are we still going backwards? Wow, we've got a big headwind. There we go. Okay, I saw some fire over here somewhere. So I guess the idea is that the flare was from our pilot, but it sure is vague because they don't tell you what you need to do. And both groups, the twosome and the larger group, will be going, you know, basically from here, and they're on foot, and they're going to be making their way towards the LZ. So this is the direction you want to look. I might have better luck just looking out here. I'm just moving the schwal because I've got it turning the Ka-50, so. You might have to go in there and draw their fire, or you can hang back and wait, but okay, there's somebody. That guy's alone. That guy's really alone. No, there's his buddies. Okay, so here's the group. So you want to lay into these guys. And we got to get closer. Disengage hover, retrim to get moving a little bit. And actually I'm going to retrim again to center that for our gun accuracy. And it looks like we've got to pull up in order to hit these guys. You know, you kind of want to lead them like I just didn't do. But you can use, you know, the armor piercing rounds work just as well on infantry. That's not that other group of two. The other group is like over down and to the left a fair amount. So once you find the big group, you should be good to go. These guys can really move, man. Oh, ouch. Invariably, there's the last guy's hardest to get, of course. Wish he'd just stand still. Oh! Got him. Haha. Okay, who's this guy? Okay, not sure what that means. If I were this guy, I'd be running for a cave or something. Okay, how's our ring? We must be going backwards. Let's get some altitude here. We get stuck in that you're too low and you have to pull back on the stick to get a good solution on the gun. So we might as well pick up some altitude. Also, another suggestion, these last few missions, you know how you don't really get too much of a hard time for not parking in your exactly where you took off, even though in the guide, the PDF, it tells you that you need to do that. But be aware that that's definitely the case as you get towards the later missions. Oh well, that's it for the ammo. I hope I get them. Now actually I've got a whole full load of the armor piercing rounds. So that's it. Got those guys. At this point, you're just gonna RTB, and again, if they tell you to check in with the tower to take off, do it, and follow the guide and all the rules that they mention in the guide if you want to get 100%. And with that, I will see you in mission number 20. The final mission of this great campaign that hopefully we'll see continue one day. So, see you next time. Barbecue out.